turned aside.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. It is a pleasure to follow the honourable gentleman. But my firm belief is that this bill is deeply flawed. Even with such concessions as ministers have made, thanks to the forensic scrutiny and dogged determination of my honourable friend, the member for Worsley and Eccles South, and her front bench team, and in the other place, this remains a bill which, if passed, will do very little to help the crisis in our mental health services. Even at this late stage, I would add my name to those of my many colleagues and the plethora of stakeholder organisations and urge ministers to delay the bill and to allow proper deliberation and discussion. Why do I say that, Madam Deputy Speaker? Firstly, we cannot debate this bill without a clear sense of the issues at stake. We are talking, Madam Deputy Speaker, about the state's rights to remove liberty from the citizen without a trial or the judgment of their peers. This goes to the very heart of habeas corpus and our most fundamental human rights. It concerns the very liberties that this Parliament has stood for centuries to defend. When Parliament has played fast and loose with our right to be free from arbitrary imprisonment, the consequences have brought shame upon us, so we must think very, very carefully before passing laws which remove a person's liberty, no matter how compelling we consider the reasons. Secondly, we must never forget the history of the treatment of people with mental illness in this country. We have a very sorry and shameful history of incarceration of people with mental illness, autism, dementia and other conditions. Often, this incarceration was unnecessary, cruel and motivated by malice, not medicine. Women in particular could be locked up for so-called hysteria when husbands wanted them out of the way. So we must tread very carefully. Thirdly, there is a question of scrutiny of this bill. We must act only after the deepest of thought and most widespread discussion and consultation. Unfortunately, Madam Deputy Speaker, this bill has not been subject to the widest consultation and the deepest discussion. The discussion and suggestions that we have made during the Mental Capacity Amendment Bill Committee seem to have been largely ignored by the government. We might have expected for ministers to have learnt the lessons from the Health and Social Care Act 2012, which was imposed without consultation and then had to be delayed before its flaws were exposed and then cost us hundreds of millions for an unnecessary raft of reckless reforms. But the bill has been rushed and the consultation with stakeholders has been incomplete. You don't have to take my word for it, Madam Deputy Speaker. Just consider the remarkable open letter issued last Friday, the 8th of February, by so many of the organisations closest to the issue. The Voluntary Organisations Disability Group, Disability Rights UK, Foundation for People with Learning Disabilities, Action on Elder Abuse, Dementia Friends, Sense, National Autistic Society, Royal Society for Blind Children, MENCAP, just to mention a very few of the more than 100 local and national organisations across England and Wales who wrote to the Minister for State and the Parliamentary Under Secretary of State. And what did this huge coalition of caring organisations come together to say? They raised their serious concerns and significant objections. They called the Department for Health and Social Care's consultation piecemeal. They talked about serious conflicts of interest. They highlighted the fact that impact assessments have been late and limited in coverage, and that there is a lack of clarity about how the system will be regulated with independent oversight. They conclude, and I quote, "We believe that the reforms in their current guise pose a threat to the human rights of those requiring the greatest support of life." A threat to human rights, Madam Deputy Speaker, that's a serious charge, and when so many organisations are making it, surely ministers must listen and not just plough on regardless. There's a saying in the disability rights movement, no decisions about us without us. When I served as a trustee of the Alzheimer's and Dementia Support Services and as a MENCAP Society committee member, it was a principle we hold dear. And yet those in their positions and places on the Treasury bench are not listening. I want to be clear with the House. We have a serious problem that needs fixing. We have vulnerable people waiting for months. We have families at the end of their tethers. We have mental health and care professionals frustrated, and that is why the system is broken. But one of the many reasons, the key reasons it is broken, is a lack of funding. For example, our system is heavily reliant on the use of police cells to detain people with mental health problems, when a police cell should only ever be used to detain someone suspected of committing a crime. Being seriously ill is not a crime. I raised this lack of funding with the Minister at second reading, but I'm still waiting for a reassurance that there will be adequate funding for the new system of liberty protection safeguards to be effective. This quite simply cannot be done on the cheap. This cannot be the excuse for yet more cuts.
Will you give way on that point?
Yes.
Can I congratulate the member for a fantastic speech, very heartfelt and very experienced. Does it share my concern that the foundations on which this is being laid, primarily on local government, are very, very weak, with an £8 billion funding gap, and the government haven't faced up to that crisis yet?
I thank my honourable friend and fully agree with him. The cuts to local government have been devastating, and this, I think, will merely exacerbate the situation. Finally, Madam Deputy Speaker, we have come a long way in our understanding of mental illness, dementia and neurodiversity. I note with pride that a new group was founded this weekend, the Labour Neurodiversity Group, to build on the success of our party's Neurodiversity Manifesto, and we wish them all the very best. We have made great strides in tackling stigma and prejudice, and thanks to the efforts of people such as my right honourable friend, the member for North Durham, and my honourable friend, the member for Liverpool Wavertree, who deserve nothing but praise. We are learning all the time, and our laws must reflect our enlightened attitudes and the latest thinking, not the outdated views of previous eras. I am happy to associate myself with the Labour amendments being discussed this afternoon in the names of my honourable and right honourable friends. If there's one I would highlight, Madam Deputy Speaker, it is the proposed amendment which guarantees a vulnerable person having the right to an advocate. In too many cases, the person has no one to speak up strongly on their behalf. In too many cases, the person has no one to articulate their wishes and to champion their best interests. It is surely right that such a person should always be available. And as a member of the Bill Committee, we made some progress in improving the bill, but I remain unconvinced that this will be enough to rescue this piece of legislation to provide a fair, workable system which ensures the best possible care for hundreds of thousands of people and guarantees their human rights. The Law Commission review in 2017, which many honourable members have highlighted, yes, I will.
Keeps talking about human rights, but what answer does he have to the fact that there are up to 125,000 people who are currently being unlawfully deprived of their liberty in breach of Article 5 of the EHCR? That's the problem that this bill seeks to rectify.
My honourable friend for her intervention, but in terms of human rights, this issue is not just being raised by myself, it is being raised by more than 100 preeminent organisations in the field, and I think the only way to solve that is through some actual funding. That's the only way I think we can actually lay this matter to rest. And the Law Commission review in 2017, which my honourable friend herself highlighted, into the deprivation of liberty safeguards, stated, and I quote, that the current regime is in crisis and needs to be overhauled. I agree, there is a crisis, and the current system cannot cope. But surely the answer is not to replace bad laws with yet more bad laws. And that, Madam Deputy Speaker, is what we are in danger of doing.